Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf on Monday, um, and I felt like I should get on a live stream to just update you with my thoughts because since I was last live, um, so much has happened. Uh, as you know, I was concerned yesterday about this the status of President Biden, and my last live stream was before he allegedly issued or presented or posted on Twitter or had someone post on Twitter his resignation letter or his letter noting that he was not moving ahead with his campaign. I'll put it that way. There are concerning anomalies about that letter. They've been pointed out by many people, including Jordan Schachtel, who really deserves credit for noticing this. But um, the signatures, don't really align with other digital signatures of the presidents. That could be just because it's not a digital signature. We're not graphologists. There's nothing official, not even letterhead saying that it's from the desk of President Biden or from the campaign. Uh, it, on the paper, and it's very, very unusual, not normative, to have a letter of that kind and that historic importance posted on Twitter and not on the White House, whitehouse.gov. And so, logically enough, questions are arising about how this letter manifested. And again, I want to refer you all to my essay, Lady McBiden, and my live stream yesterday, in which I predicted very accurately from what I was seeing just in the process of communicating with the people of the United States that there's chaos and there are multiple factions kind of battling it out in the White House. As I said yesterday, it looks like there are two coups going on at the same time. The supporters of not President Biden and Democratic donors certainly aligning against him, his own staff aligning against him, as I said yesterday, as it appears. Obviously, I don't have direct sources saying this. It's just I was inferring from the chaotic nature of the media, the messaging, the communications, the scheduling, and the last holdouts, supportive of President Biden, which would be notably his family, who, as I said yesterday, aren't the most stable. So it's I don't want to, alarm anyone unnecessarily. I don't want to stoke hysteria, but it's a very dangerous moment. And again, as always, I recommend that you stay calm, get your food in order, get your water supplies in order, print out your asset records, meet with your neighbors to figure out what you will all do if a grid goes down, or God forbid there's an emergency, right? A physical emergency. It's a dangerous moment because it's such a dangerous moment. Again, I don't want to alarm anyone unnecessarily, but think about what it means that we don't know where the president is. We haven't seen the president. He hasn't addressed the nation. That means, God forbid, if he is, God forbid, extremely unwell, incapacitated, God forbid, had a stroke, God forbid, or has just been kind of sidelined, which I hope, it's the best of all scenarios, right? Then until until the vice president has been put in place as the president, according to Article 25, as I understand it, we have no commander in chief, or we don't yet. He has not appeared. And the reason I'm, really taking the risk of doing this video is that you really need to understand how serious it is if we don't have a visible president, not so much for our own relatively peaceful, relatively stable society, but for our enemies around the world who, just in terms of national security, because the president is the commander in chief, meaning the buck stops with the president as the commander in chief means he oversees the military, of course, and everything else. That's the nature of the president. So who oversees the military now, right? Who's in charge of the military? If, God forbid, there's a strike of some kind or a dirty bomb is released, God forbid, who makes decisions, right, on behalf of the president? And Misty LaFleury, greetings again, Misty LaFleury. You've been, an active community member in these discussions. Points out the president's calendar is blank for today and the entire week. And Durf Ferguson says, I don't think Biden was keeping us safe from anything. That may well be. I hear your opinion, but a structured chain of command keeps us safe in many, many ways. And I know people are saying, if you honestly think Biden was making any decisions, you need to check yourself. That's not the point. The point is having no evident commander in chief means that we are wide open for our enemies to make nefarious plans at our expense. And it's very serious. So I guess the other thing I just want to do, using my my past experience being around, being a White House spouse, being an advisor to a presidential campaign and vice presidential campaign, is just to kind of do a little reality check of what is supposed to be happening. Major historic announcements aren't supposed to be made on Twitter. Mrs. Biden put a little heart emoji on President Biden's alleged resignation letter on Twitter. That's not supposed to happen. There would be a formal statement from the First Lady's press office, if not from the First Lady herself. Something else that's really weird, and then immediately, even if he's quite ill, God forbid, we'd hear from the president. He would say something. There would be a camera crew in Delaware, and even if he's quite ill with COVID, he would give us a statement, letting us know that he's fine, stabilizing the markets. Hello, everyone, and also letting us know that there's continuity, that things are under control, so that the United States and the rest of the world aren't engaged in insane speculation. And just as a note about that, Lars Svensson says, I'm watching from Denmark, and it's just crazy beyond words, and the lack of comms inevitably leads people to think coup, in itself a reason to absolutely communicate with the public. 1,000%. And I can't stress enough, if things were normal, even if the president didn't feel like addressing the country, the people who are deeply invested in the markets would compel him to, because why would you invest in America at this point? Why would you invest in the dollar at this point? You would de-dollarize immediately. And, even as I'm talking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need to kind of move everything into precious metals and, real estate, because, such as I have, because everyone is going to be thinking it's time to de-dollarize. No one's in charge in the United States of America. Well, this is concerning Finn's mom. This is not confirmed. Says, I live in Bethany Beach, Delaware, 15 minutes south of Rehoboth. I'm sitting out on my screen porch and I keep hearing planes. Sounds like military planes circling the area. Very, very unusual and somewhat frightening. Well, Finn's mom, thank you. We need a second source to confirm that. Ideally, audio or video. I really don't want to scare people unnecessarily and go beyond what we know. But certainly it's also appropriate at a time like this for everyone to be very vigilant and report on anything unusual. So Phil says no presidential seal on letter strikes me as very extremely odd. Actually, it's not. I had that reaction initially, but then I remembered that President Trump isn't, oof, what a slip. President Biden isn't resigning his, not yet, his role as president. He was just resigning or stepping back from being willing to be nominated as the nominee. He was stepping back from campaigning. And you can't, according to FEC law, combine campaigning and governing. They have to be separate. And Finn's mom says, I understand, but just letting you all know, I can't see the planes, but I can hear them. So Finn's mom, record them, get some audio, on those planes. And, again, citizen journalists, who, what, where, when. If you don't want to add your name, you don't have to, but you can still document events. Make sure that you do the date, the time, and the location. And so Misty Lawflurry says, so wouldn't his letter have been on DNC letterhead? Yes, either that or even his own personal letterhead or campaign letterhead. Again, I don't know the details of what should be the letterhead, but it's very, it wouldn't just be like a sheet of paper that you get from Staples, right? And Barry Atkinson says, I think Jamie Dimon is in charge because the markets in Bitcoin are up at the opening. And Autumn Smith, this is very worrying because Autumn Smith is also a very good citizen journalist. She said, I called the White House twice last night, 2 different numbers, no answer, and was disconnected. Well, I don't like that at all. So Autumn, please call again. It's work hours. And, report back. People should be calling the White House. But again, I really want everyone to stay calm. I don't want to stoke unnecessary, alarm. I don't want to overstate anything. I'm just saying this is not normative. What would be normative would also be spin. And I made this point last night on Twitter after I learned that President Biden had withdrawn his nomination from the nomination process. Yes, it's summer. Yes, it's July. Yes, a lot of people are on vacation. But under normal circumstances, when there's a dramatic event like the withdrawal of the incumbent from the nomination process, normally, even if people are on vacation, you would have talking heads on both sides, Congress members on both sides, Senate members on both sides. Certainly Karine Jean-Pierre, who hasn't been seen since last Wednesday, right? Or at least had no events that I can see since last Wednesday. And again, if she's on vacation, there's a junior person always there. Same with the campaign. There's no such thing as, during campaign season, certainly not, but even at the White House, that there's no one home to communicate, right? There's always someone home to communicate. Well, under normal circumstances, all those people would be spinning because this is a really important event to spin, right? The Democrats need it to look positive because it doesn't look very positive. The Republicans theoretically would make the most of it. Some of them are talking, but really there's relative crickets. Ilana A says everyone is silent, crickets. And Paul Danner says fog of war. And Sharo says, do you understand what happens next for the DNC? Is there a protocol and will they follow it? It seems like they can do whatever they want and Democrat voters will have no say. Sharo, I don't know and I don't understand. And as I said, in my last streaming video, the DNC, I should say, does tend to just make things up when it comes to rules, the way they did to make sure that RFK Jr. wouldn't be the nominee and wouldn't even be on the ballot if they could avoid it. So I have no idea. I do see that Jen Psaki this morning or last night, a little hard for me to tell at a glance, was kind of spinning the process that the DNC is probably inventing to come up with the nominee that they want. And if we're going to get to that point, which I hope we do, because that's still a democracy, even if a flawed and vulnerable one, And Ilana A says, yes, Jet Psaki says there will be a process, right? That, I assume it's going to be some Hillary Clinton / Michelle Obama / Gavin Newsom triad of some kind, or Newsom Hillary with, Michelle Obama aligned. I mean, some version of those three. And David Royalty says, Naomi, did you see Tucker's latest interview on TCN? I didn't, so please text or whatever in the comments. Tell me what I should know about that. And Maddow asked, like a competition. This is so sad. I mean, it's supposed to be the people. This is like the conservative commentators who are saying, even if we get to that point, God willing, that there is a convention and the Democrats move ahead and try to come up with a ticket that, that will get us to a normal election day in November. It's not a Stalinist group of oligarchs who are supposed to decide this, right? Even on the Democratic side, it's supposed to be the people and their delegates. And yes, there is a protocol. I don't know it. I'd have to dig, and I don't even know how public it is. But there is a standard process for delegates presenting the votes of the people at a convention, and the people are not supposed to be left out of it. And Tad Meyer very rightly says, what we are experiencing is communism with American characteristics, which is exactly right. And I should also say, again, best case scenario, that there will be a Democratic convention, that there will be an election. I also see, with the spin about the process, that either way we're being habituated to accept a more Stalinist or Putin-like form of regime change, where it's being spun that this is fine, this is normal. And Karen Carpenter asks, continuity of government, ? And she's right to ask that. As I keep saying, things are not improvised at this level. There is a continuity of government plan. There are, multiple layers of what to do next if the president is incapacitated. It happens. Presidents have been assassinated. Presidents have had strokes. Presidents have been, disabled in office. There is continuity of government. Autumn Smith very perceptively says, it appears the Democrats are using the Communist Manifesto as their instruction guide. The DNC is happening just to give the appearance of officialness. Honestly, it looks that way to me. But let me go back to what I know, okay? So, Paul Danner just posted a whitehouse.gov briefing room presidential actions memorandum. Someone needs to open that, and while I speak, ideally give us some of the key points in the chat. And GB says, DNC Chicago, open convention, war, protests, inflation, assassination attempts. All we're missing is Mayor Daley for 68 redux. It certainly does feel like 68 all over again, but with our democratic institutions even more vulnerable. It's a memorandum on delegation of functions and authorities under sections 1333, 1342, 1352, and 1353. Thank you, Paul Danner. So is this a document that just happens to be on the White House website or in some kind of appropriate place if people are searching for continuity of government, or is it on the homepage? Please let me know, let us know in the comments. And yeah, the point either way is that there is continuity of government, but we're not seeing or hearing it. I mean, obviously, if President Biden is, so Paul says link above. So could someone open that? Because I can't while I'm talking, and lift out some of the key points. And was it on the homepage, Paul? Very important. Right now, if President Biden can't campaign and we can't see him, which is the number one headline, right? We haven't seen President Biden since last Wednesday. then he can't govern, right? And so what you can assume is happening is a furious battle right now behind the scenes at the White House, where different people who have influence are trying to get the outcome they want with the biggest prize in the world, which is the presidency of the United States of America. And I'm not implying anything, Bathsheba. I'm just saying, from my experience, having worked in and around, a White House and not in, around, as advising a campaign, and certainly around a vice president, this is weird, is what I'm saying. This is not normal. Normal is Jean-Pierre holding a press conference, a video of President Biden being presented, explaining what's going on, live stream, taking questions, Mrs. Harris, present, physical. That's not what we're seeing. And now let me turn to Mrs. Harris, who under Article 25 becomes the president of the United States if President Biden is incapacitated or, God forbid, passes away. This is very creepy. Autumn Smith noted that Frank Biden, the brother, said something about using the time he has left. I really don't like that. It's concerning. It's sobering. He shouldn't be talking like that. Again, if he did, right, it's very difficult to verify any of this. And at Stacey KJ Bird tweeted, to me, it says she won't be the nominee come the DNC. Well, it's clear that there's, as I said, two coups underway at the same time, and that the DNC doesn't want Harris to be the nominee, and the donors don't want Harris to be the nominee, and they don't think that she can win in, if God willing, we get an actual, election with an actual Democratic vote. Clearly a giant chunk of the powers that be who have the money are not on board with her being the nominee because they think that's a Trump victory. And so just be aware of that. It means that, I'm just doing the math right now. The fact that we still haven't seen the president, we don't know if he's capacitated or incapacitated, if he can govern or if he can't govern, and Article 25 has not been invoked, we don't, the vice president hasn't become the president, means that there's a cohort, this is my analysis, I don't know it firsthand, behind the scenes at the White House that does not want Mrs. Harris to become the president or the nominee. I don't know how you get around that. That's our system, right? But there's a bizarre delay. Either way, either in President Biden saying, here I am, I'm fine, give me some days to recover, or the vice president saying, here I am, I'm fine, everything's under control. We're not seeing that. And Ilana Aces Soros Jr. endorsed her. Well, that's interesting and important. Again, it's a fight, right? There are many donors. I mean, this is my analysis. And so I guess the last thing I would say is, where is Mrs. Harris, the vice president? Her schedule, his public schedule is blank, right? President Biden's public schedule is blank. And Rita Ryan notes that the money follows Harris unencumbered. I don't know enough about that, so someone else has to confirm that. It's certainly important if it's true. But I do want to say what Vice President Harris is doing today is weird under these circumstances. And let me know, everyone, if she's appeared. But her schedule says she's meeting with the NCAA. Is that a sports team? Let me know. But and that it's at the White House. So that's weird, having a normal, event at the White House instead of a formal press conference to take questions and reassure everybody. And I don't like that either, because it's almost as if someone doesn't want the country to be reassured. Thank you. National Collegiate Athletic Association, says Brad Brewster. All right, so that's strange. You know, it's a okay, who's Mrs. Harris? Vice President Harris. All right. I was using shorthand, but you're quite right. Her formal title is Vice President Harris. And so, okay, so she's speaking at 11:30. So we have 2 hours, a little less, to wait. And again, it's weird that there are going to be all these, you know, athletes with her at an event for athletes. That's not normal. What should be happening under normal optics is her schedule would have been cleared of all the events like the NCAA event at the White House, and she would be, you know, there would be pictures of her. And by the way, there is always a photographer every day at all times in the White House documenting everything. So there should by now be images of Vice President Harris in the Situation Room, right, or in the Oval Office, or at the podium with Jean-Pierre, Karine Jean-Pierre, and we're not seeing that. So is someone trying to rattle the markets? Is someone just, you know, my theory in the past has been China feels that they had a century of humiliation and now they've got a puppet administration. They're inflicting humiliation on us. It's certainly humiliating that Americans are asking, where's the vice president? Where's the president? And Misty Lafleury says, where is Karine Jean-Pierre this morning? Very good question. And again, I will remind everyone, if she's not available, she has a surrogate. She has a junior. Everyone has a surrogate at that level. There's no kind of, the White House and the campaign is never like, and to my point about Autumn Smith being disconnected, I really don't like that, not to alarm anyone unnecessarily. But, you know, the White House never has a closed sign, right? I mean, certainly you can call after hours and not get through, and we have to make sure that, you know, that's not what, or ideally that is all that Autumn Smith is facing and not getting through to the White House. You guys should be calling the White House and reporting, you know, whether you can leave a message, whether anyone answers. I've asked earlier on Twitter, you know, thousands of people work at the White House and the old executive office building where a lot of governing goes on. And they've got to start leaking, you know, I mean, for the sake of the country, what do they see? What do they hear? You don't, very important to know, you don't have to use your name. You can leak on background, which means you say what's really happening, but you don't use your name. And that's very useful and important when people are scared of retribution, recriminations. You know, they're afraid of being whistleblowers under their own names. You can just put it out there, have someone put it out there without your name. It's not confirmed journalistically, but I think we're kind of past that at this moment. We just need a sense of what's going on, a glimpse into the White House and the old executive office building. Secretaries, janitorial staff, come on, you know, what's happening? Also, eyewitness accounts. Has anything changed outside the White House? Are there new barriers going up? Is there new security? Are there new snipers on the roof? Can someone just walk outside the White House and report? Does it look the same? You know, any changes are very important to assess, you know, even in a very minimal way, what's going on. Okay, so the video is just buffering. I guess I should stop there. Ilana says, too busy with a double CUDA leak. I mean, that's literally, you know, not even a joke in some ways. And that's interesting. Robert says, so far stock markets are rallying higher, Bitcoin higher. Can you all hear me? Is the stream okay now? And that's really interesting. I mean, I could see that, you know, it's better to have a sentient leader than a not sentient leader. But I still am concerned. Here's something else that concerns me. It was reported this morning that Mayorkas, head of DHS, as I understand it, is in charge of the bipartisan panel that will investigate the assassination attempt on President Trump. Talk about a fox guarding the hen house. He was the boss of all those people who let President Trump get so close to danger. So that's not reassuring at all. And I'll just repeat, I'll just repeat what I said yesterday for those of you who didn't hear it, that I'm not reassured by Senator Johnson saying that they were only allowed 4 questions by the FBI and DHS when it came to President Trump's assassination attempt. This was before Biden's resignation letter, alleged resignation letter. And that's bad because it shows that the senators aren't in charge anymore, in my analysis, right? Again, I don't mean to make any claims that I can't verify. I can't verify that. But reading between the lines, when you're in charge, the FBI can't say to you, you're only allowed 4 questions, then submit a FOIA. And the other thing that concerns me is that, Mayorkas and DHS, and again, President Biden had a lot of DHS alums on his campaign staff and in his White House staff. So DHS is in charge of, of what, right? I mean, who's in charge? I guess I'll just end this with who's in charge. We don't know. Maybe we'll know at 11:30, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, and by the way, Thomas Massie also had a really important tweet in which he said, would you recognize a coup if one took place? Which I think was a very brave thing for him to say, because remember, the people who secure President Trump are the same people who secure Congress and the Senate. So something that I'm very worried about is where are the Congress people? Where are the senators, right? Yes, it's July. Some people are on vacation. It's not in session. But again, under ordinary circumstances, senators and Congress people would be dialing in from Martha's Vineyard, or Tennessee or wherever they're vacationing to be on Fox News or to be on CNN and spin. So I'm worried about that. And I think that was a brave tweet. And, I'm worried about this situation. Let's put it that way. I'll stop there. Cheadle at 10 a.m. Well, that's good to know. She's making a statement. And someone important needs to demand answers now, says Durf Bergeson. Well, let's leave it at that. But it's, how can I put it? I always warn. First of all, I just want to remind you, I've been warning that this day could come since 2007. And all I've done with my whole career since then, the most important thing I've done is to warn you that this day could come, and to try to put everything in place so that we could get through it and have our republic back on the other side. And GS rightly says, fear is our greatest enemy always. So I love, how calm the audience was at the very violent event in Butler, Pennsylvania, at which one man lost his life and 3 others were injured. And let's emulate that, right? Let's stay super calm, not react to rumor, only react as much as possible to confirmed facts, get as many facts as we can, share them as long as we can. And again, just be ready, have your food, have your water, have your cash. I would get out right now, honestly. Do everything you can to get out of debt because of the risk of central bank digital currency. Meet with your neighbors. I can't say this enough. Figure out how to peacefully defend yourself. Make sure that you have a way. By the way, I'm going to add to my list, collect paper maps, because I've been noticing that the maps are gone from the New York City subways. They used to have paper or cardboard maps, then those got done away with. Then there were digital maps, those got done away with. Now there are schematic digital maps that, kind of tell you what subway to take, but don't really help you if there's an outage, get anywhere on the island of Manhattan or in the 5 boroughs. So you really need to start hoarding and saving paper maps or printing out maps and keeping them in paper format. Rethink, revisit, reimagine, rebuild, recreate, repurpose, rededicate, re-evolution. Well said. Oh, free paper maps for AAA members. Well, reach out to AAA guys. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a very chaotic summer until things stabilize again. And it's up to us, right? No one can scare us or intimidate us if we don't let them. And, I hope I'm wrong, as always. I hope Cheetah will come on at 10, the vice president will come on at 11:30, and everything will be fine. Right now, from my experience base, things don't look fine. But I stand by it. In the meantime, I'll keep you informed as much as I can. Do my best, but you need to keep each other informed as well, and you need to, be that force of courage and freedom that our founders asked us to be exactly at times such as this. Our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and our Declaration of Independence were created for times such as this. So just stand firm, pray. I think it's time to pray. I'm going to be reading Matthew later on from the Hebrew, and I'll add the Old Testament. We're up to Exodus 26. I personally think we've all got to pray and kind of read scripture. But, let's also just think about how precious it is to live in a peaceful, stable democracy with freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and that we're not going to let it die on our watch. All right. Granny says, yes, it's time to pray. I quite agree. The empire is dying, but they love you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, hopefully out of this collapse, something even more beautiful will be reborn. Oh, I'm getting lots of hearts and hugs. Thank you. David Royalty says, love your spiritual work. Thank you. Thank you all. And guys, I also need your support. So go to, we all need your support who are doing independent journalism. But for me, if you want me to be able to continue this as long as I can, please go to Outspoken and become subscribers. If you can afford to, paying subscribers. Go to Daily Clout, become donors or members. If you can afford to, send donations. And also please support our sponsors, notably Native Path, getnativepath.com/Daily Clout, and that really helps us as well. Thank you, our Sentinel. It's really sweet. We must defeat this evil. Big heart, prayer, hearts. Let's end there, everyone. Stay safe. Keep me posted, and I'll keep you posted. I miss Steve Bannon. I know that would be so hard.